There is an ancient story in the book of Daniel that says that three young men, when they refused to bow down to the social structures, they refused to bow down to what the king has spoken, and that was against what God has spoken. These three young men, because they refused to submit themselves to the human authorities that were speaking, commanding against the words of the living God, they stood their ground, and because they honored God more than they honored people, they were taken by force by the army, by the soldiers, because they refused to obey the commandment of man and honored the command of God, and they were taken and thrown into a furnace of blazing fire. Now, here's where the story gets interesting. The moment they were thrown into the fire, they were tied with ropes and they were cast into the fire. The people outside saw not three but four into the fire. They saw the three boys walking around freely, and they saw one, like the Son of God, with them in the fire. And then the moment they saw that, they took them out of the fire and they were set free and they were honored by men. Here's the moral of the story. There are times in our life when we are called to stand our ground and stand in truth, honoring the commands of God, and do not bow the insanity of the commands of men. The moment we get punished by the social structures because we honor the truth of the living God rather than simply bow down to what the social structures are trying to force us to do, we will be thrown into the fire. And this fire can take many forms. It can be persecution, it can be loneliness, it can be in so many ways, forms or shapes that we are called to suffer for the truth of Jesus Christ. But the moment we are being thrown into the fire, this is what's happening. Number one, that there comes a time when we have to go through the fire. Number two, when we go through the fire, because we honor God, because we honor His word, when we go through the fire, Jesus Christ will be with us in the midst of the furnace. He will be with us. He will not let us alone. Number three, when we get out, only the ropes that were binding us will be burned. So when we come out of the fire, there is a great purpose for the fire, because when we come out of the fire, first of all, we will walk out freely. The fire will not touch us. The fire will not hurt us. Not even the smell of fire shall be upon us. But only the ropes that we had been bound with will have been broken. So when we go through the process of honoring God, walking with Him, and when the social structures come and set fire on our circumstances, only what is binding us, the religious mindsets, the fears of men, trying to please other people, all sorts of mindsets, of mentalities that even unawareingly bind us, they will just snap. And when we come out of the fire, we will be more free, more at liberty than when we walked into. That is the beauty and the power of living in truth, living in the truth of God, living, honoring His commandments, and clinging to Him. Because the purpose of man, for those who are still trying to find meaning, to find purpose in life, the purpose of man is to cling to God. So when we go through the fire, because we honor God and the social environment forces us, presses us, sets fire on our circumstances, nothing by any means will touch us if we cling to God. And when we come out of the fire, we will be refined, we will be polished, and everything that was binding us, mindsets, mentalities, all sorts of things in our soul will just have been completely burned, and we will walk in more power, in more freedom than before.